Hello and welcome to Two-Way Talk Basketball Podcast, talking about everything basketball from both perspectives. With dual Olympian and NBL champion Mark Worthington and dual Olympian and 2 times NBL MVP Chris Anstey, hosted by sports presenters Candy Hertz and Nathan Strempel. Let's get into it. Hi everyone and welcome to our special grand final edition of Two-Way Talk video podcast. My name's Candy Hertz and today I am joined by my good friends and talented friends at that, Chris Anstey and Mark Worthington. Sad to say Nathan is not joining us for our grand final show. I think he got a bit scared by you last episode, Wortho.
Definitely not.
Maybe.
But it's good to be here. We're finally here.
I can't believe
final. It's
60
awesome.
games, not even 6 weeks, all, of course, played up in Queensland. Unbelievably short season, but it feels like it's been going forever at the same time. I never know how that works. Of course, I don't want to be a bit of a spoiler for anyone who hasn't been concentrating, but the announcement is final now. It is a Flyers grand final, and we're going to have a quick look at how we got there because there have, of course, been the 2 semi-finals and the prelim final in the last couple of days. So let's kick off first with the final that was between the Caps and the Boomers. Now, I have to tell you, the reigning champs were immediately pushed out of title contention when they went down to the red-hot Melbourne Boomers on Wednesday night, 68-78. After speaking to the Boomers coaching staff during the week, I know how disappointed they were in themselves not getting themselves that second chance immediately because, of course, they finished 4th on the ladder. So it was clear that the Boomers were on a mission on Wednesday night, and they didn't stop for a minute. They were in the lead for all 4 quarters of the game. Ezzy came to the party with lots of presents, scoring 20 points, 11 rebounds and 4 blocks. And we saw Tess Madgen in fine form, 13, 9 and 6. The bench played significant time with Izzy Wright and Kalani Purcell playing significant roles in the win as well. Kayla George spoke to SEN this week saying that they planned on changing up a few things for the prelim final and expressed that it really felt like it was finally their chance to get themselves into the grand final. We do know obviously how that ended up playing out in the end, but what did we think of this game, guys, in terms of the performance that the Boomers put on versus the reigning champs who got slammed straight out of the finals? Wertho, what do you think?
Oh, I know Chris is. Let Chris go first. Chris is biting it.
Well, we spoke about it and we watched it from our separate quarters, but it just felt that the Boomers were in control of this game the entire match. I thought Izzy Wright was really, really solid, hit some key baskets in that third quarter when Canberra made a little bit of a run. But, yeah, it was interesting watching it unfold and the inexperience of Canberra's backcourt against the physicality of the Boomers' backcourt was really evident. Izzy's foot speed was far too quick for Tolo. George and Izzy were too big for their front line, so... Yeah, the only time that Canberra really looked like making a genuine run at them was more about the Boomers self-inflicting and having the ball die, sitting on the ball, over-dribbling a lot and not getting into their stuff than it was Canberra being proactive in the way they were playing. So for me, that could have been a bigger win for the Boomers. It was a really promising sign coming into the preliminary final to dominate a final like that. Really impressive game by the Boomers, one that we thought and we all predicted would happen. But no, again, it probably highlighted at the end of the day the dependency that Canberra had on its imports, maybe even more so than any other team in the WNBL last year, and they just couldn't get the contributions from their Australian contingency when it really mattered in the finals.
I thought... I think you hit the nail on the head there, Chris, and something that I was going to speak to. I don't think we thought the Capitals were going to make it all the way to the grand final. We thought they were going to be a finals team this year, and we were just waiting for when that backcourt from last year, when that would catch up to them, and it caught up to them in the form of a finals game. Nothing against the young talent that they have and great experience for both Maddie Rocci, Jade Melbourne, and all that going forward. But for me, Tess Madgen started to elevate her game again to another level. Maddie Garrick, I think that was her 250th game as well that she played that game.
Yep. The game before that. Yep.
Yeah, so congratulations to her. But The backcourt for me was the dominant force in that game and really took control of it going forward.
Before we move on to the next game, one thing I will say, though, is that I looked at the box score just before three-quarter time, and I guess you could tell Coach Paul Goris's mindset going in, and we've marvelled at how good a season Jade Melbourne's had this year. She'd only played 4 minutes through the first 2 3/4 quarters. So, and then, it was almost like they got so far behind that Paul Goris needed to try something else, then gave her a hit and let her go. And she actually ended up playing most of the remaining third and fourth quarters and did very well in that time. So just made me wonder a little bit. Clearly, there wasn't the confidence in a finals game in Jade that, Paul Goris had early on in the season, in a regular season game. But I thought that, almost contradictory to what I've just said, when she did have her opportunity, albeit too late, I thought she performed well.
I would think there is a bit more to talk about with the Boomers, but given they did then book themselves that second chance opportunity to go into the prelim, we'll talk a bit more about them when we cover that game off. The other semi-final, of course, the Fire and the Flyers. And if there was ever a statement to be made by any team ever, that first quarter of the semi between Flyers and Fire was that statement. The Flyers made their first 10 field goal attempts and ended the quarter on 41 points. And just for some context, this WNBL season, twice this season, Bendigo Spirit racked up only 51 points for the whole game. So it gives you a bit of context when you think of it like that. The Fire had the wind knocked out of them, and even though they put up a valiant fight, they didn't lead at any point during the game. Our favourite backcourt pairing of Shyla Hill and Lauren Nicholson gave it their guts and all, scoring collectively 60 of the final 93 that Fire ended with. But it feels like even the superstars paled in comparison to the show Liz Cambage put on for us, scoring 31 points and 8 rebounds. Her presence was felt for every one of the nearly 33 minutes that she was on court. The true sweetness, of course, comes in the form of a few days just before the grand final, having a real luxury in this league, having a couple of days off and having a chance to have a quick practice as well as a team. Such a luxury for them. How do you think they use that time, Chris?
Rest. They're not going to improve. They're not going to get better in the couple of days leading up to a game. We heard them speak about they were going to have a hard session on Friday, essentially to replicate the game that the Fire played against the Boomers. But the best thing they can do is come into a game fresh and be able to finish a game strong. But you're right, that was the most impressive offensive game I saw all season in the WNBL by both teams. To shoot such a high percentage across the first quarter and to be making tough shots, you just felt that the Flyers might be able to sustain it a little bit longer than what the Fire are able to. But I really enjoyed watching that game. There was a part of me that was barracking for the Flyers to create an upset, because I think, as much as we want to be unbiased when we commentate and talk about a professional league, there's still a part of all of us that wants an underdog to get up. And that might have been their chance in such a free-flowing game. But look, the Flyers, more than 100 points again. Liz Cambage is dominant when she wants to be. She's been a lot more disciplined the second half of the season. The Flyers role players are shooting the three well. Leilani Mitchell's picking her times. She's distributing the ball, but you see her go through phases of 2 or 3 minutes at a time. When she hits one, she'll go and seek out another 2 or 3 shots, and she'll go until she misses. So they know their roles. They know what they're capable of. Beck Cole was someone else who didn't take a bad shot for the duration of the game, and really, she was the one that got the scoreboard ticking over. And part of that 41-point first quarter, I think you'll find it was Beck Cole and a couple of others. It wasn't Liz in the first quarter. She got a lot of her points in the last 3 quarters.
She's always a bit slow to start, isn't she?
Well, the scout tends to really go into effect early in the game when it's fresh in players' minds. But as the game wears on, Liz doesn't get any smaller and players get a little bit more tired, and that's when she becomes dominant. But the double teams weren't quite as aggressive. They weren't quite as early later on in the game, and Liz just found a few more easy looks.
For me, this was more well done to the Flyers. They won. They should have won. Everyone expected them to win. That first quarter that they put on was exceptional. You could argue that Townsville probably outplayed them for the next 3 quarters. After that, got the game back close. and going into a grand final series versus the Flyers and having that repeat match, the hardest thing to do is beat a team again. What would it be for the fourth time this year? It's really hard to do. And knowing that they outplayed them for 3 quarters, they probably give themselves a fair chance. Shyla Heal is really, really good at basketball. She's better than whatever. She's better than whatever everyone's already saying she's really good, and she's better than that. And if we didn't know it from this game, then we found out in the next game of how great of a player that she is, and she's fearless. She's not afraid of the big moments, obviously, and Chris can tell you the difference between a good player and a great player is a great player shows up in playoffs. It's not that hard to be a good player for a season. I think we see it in the NBA with Paul George. He's only a good player. He's not a great player. He can't play playoff basketball. But what we saw in Shyla Heal is someone that, you know, the one thought, and I actually said this to one of my family members, is I think I'd almost reconsider my Opals team and just hand the reins to Shyla now and bring in Sam Whitcomb as a shooter, because Shyla can do everything that Leilani's doing. She just doesn't have the same age, so the experience thing comes into play. But she's a fantastic player. She's at the level now. She could take the reins over now if she wanted to.
Can you elaborate just a tiny bit on that word, though, with your statement of anyone can be a good player but not necessarily a great finals player? Is that just because so much nervous energy comes into finals, or everyone lifts their game and it might show up, you know, whether you're not good enough for it? What can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast from the NBA show, and they had a ex-NBA player, Raja Bell, talking about the difference between a preseason game and a regular season, and the difference between a regular season and a finals game. And it's the level of intensity goes up, and in basketball, we talk about having no plays off and every possession counts. And essentially in the finals, every possession does count. The smallest mistake can cost your team a chance to be playing in a final or being eliminated. What we saw from Shyla is a willingness to distribute the ball. What we saw is her ability to knock down a big shot when it's needed. And what we saw is her ability to create her own shot as well. Now, when you have those 3 things, that's a complete package for a player. And someone of her age that has been in the WNBL system and has been biding her time and all that, to get to this point, for this opportunity to play under a coach that she really wants to play for. And Shannon came out and said it, like, we brought her here for this opportunity. We knew that she would be able to take us to a grand final. And someone at such a young age, I think we're looking at the female version of what Patty Mills is to the Boomers. And so that's why we need to give her an opportunity now to take over the reins if we want to have continued success going forward with the Opals program. And far for 2 ex-Boomers players to be able to talk about success at the world level, because the Boomers haven't done it. But the Opals have been a powerhouse for so long, and I think it might be the right time to transition and let Shyla take over the reins.
You know what, Wertho, just to pick up on that, and I'll talk about Shyla a little bit more when we talk about her next game, but just remember as well, I agree with you 100% about her being an Opal and a key part of this, but keep in mind as well, Patty Mills had CJ Bruton starting in the point, his first Olympic campaign, to learn from him, to grow from him, to alleviate some of the pressure. So I agree, but I'll still have Leilani Mitchell in my team so Shyla can work alongside her and learn from her internationally for her first one.
We'll make sure we keep a recording of this so that when the Opals teams are announced, no one's upset about the fact that they changed their mind and it wasn't what we put in our predictions in our last episode. But yeah, perfect timing to talk more about Shyla, because next up we had the preliminary finals, which were last night. And the Fire's main takeaway from the first final was that they needed to lock in defensively, especially in their traditionally slow first quarter if they really want to get the job done. Well, they were a little bit slow to start, but then pulled it together for an exceptional game of basketball. And it's all thanks to who we can't stop talking about, our rising star, Shyla Hill. What a weapon. She scored a game-high 25 points and 5 rebounds. But more than that, she was relentless in her efforts to get the job done, showing incredible leadership and maturity beyond her years as well. You could see it all over her face through the game. It looked like Townsville had it in the bag until the last 5 minutes of the game when Melbourne, fighting for their lives, came up strong and in the last minute of the game closed the gap to just 1 point. It was really exciting basketball to watch, but it was Melbourne's old bugbear that ended their season with Ezzy and then Maddie missing crucial threes to lock up the game. And in a night where they only scored 4 of their 23 three-point attempts, the game was lost. Well done to Shyla and Townsville for getting it done with a final score of 62-65. We've just spoken so much about her, but I feel like we could probably still keep going on about Shyla. What about the rest of the Fire team last night, Chris?
I'm going to go Shyla first as well, because she did some things in that game that we wondered. Not that we wondered. She went left and got on the rim a couple of times, and you could see that was the Boomers scout, and she punished them by being able to do something that she hadn't done all season long. She knocked down her pull-up jump shot. She defended well at the front of the zone, at the front of their man-to-man defense. But the play for me, when the game was on the line, there was a contested offensive rebound that Izzy Wright got her hands onto first, and Shyla just ripped it out of her hands. She just wanted it more. Plain and simple, ripped it out of her hands, dribbled the ball back behind the three-point line and knocked down a three. That was the game right there, and
gave me goosebumps even talking about it.
Yeah, it was just probably the biggest play of Townsville's season. It catapulted them into the grand final. Look, hey, the Boomers still had their three-point attempt to tie it and send it to overtime, but for a veteran player, and it was Shyla Hill driving a point up in the closing minute of the game, got herself to the free throw line. Kayla George needed to do a better job of showing your hands and not swiping at the ball. I mean, make it a contested shot and keep Shyla off the line. So a bad defensive play by the Boomers. We are reminded that they weren't a very good three-point shooting team, and it wasn't that long ago where they went none of 30-something over the stretch of a few games. And 4 of 23 in a preliminary final is not going to win too many, but this one was all about Shyla. She was too good. Forget talking about that she's only 19 years old. She's a superstar. And if they're going to be any chance of beating the Flyers, her and Lauren Nicholson need to absolutely light it up from the three and be fearless. And they're going to shoot the ball a lot in the grand final, but they need to really make their perimeter shots in the grand final to be any sort of a chance.
Yeah, you've spoken a lot about Shyla, and I'll just go and retract a statement from the last episode, but congratulations to Shannon Seaborn. He was excellent.
Just going to get Nathan on the phone.
No, stuff Nathan. I know he's wobbling his head somewhere.
I hope he is.
He's been outstanding. He's been really good, and you can see the confidence that he's instilled in his young core of players, and they play hard. Not only for him, but for each other. And he is, I think he signed a contract, so he's locked up there till 2025, I want to say, which is great for them. And if they can continue to have this young group now going forward, it would be amazing. But you feel like someone like Shyla is probably destined to go off and do bigger and better things. But let's enjoy her while she's here. Let's enjoy this moment for Townsville. And crazier things have happened in the final series. You live by the three, you die by the three. The Boomers just died by it. Who knows with the Flyers? They've shot the ball exceptionally well all year, but it only takes one game of them not shooting the ball well, and Townsville to be able to ride that wave of momentum that they have after that game. But it's all going to go through Liz Cambridge and what she brings to the grand final. And I'm sure that Shannon's probably still got one or two tricks left up his sleeve to be able to combat her.
Okay, just one more point I do want to make, because we'll talk about the Flyers again, but for the Boomers and Wortho, if I just want to put my coach's hat on for a second. In the fourth quarter, when the Boomers went to their 2-3 zone, it was appalling. That their guards had no intent of getting back and taking away that free throw line catch. So Townsville caught it at the free throw line in the middle of a 2-3 zone after one pass, maybe 4 times, attacked high-low and got uncontested layups against a 2-3 zone. And that's just, one thing that I wrote on Twitter last night about Shiloh is she works incredibly hard, and Shannon's got that team working incredibly hard. The defensive intensity of the Boomers when you go to a zone, there are 2 mindsets when you play zone. We can use it to attack and really disrupt the opponent, or, we're going to fall back into a zone. It just looked like the Boomers said, we're going to fall back into a zone and hope they miss. And Townsville picked them apart through the free throw line. So that was, for me, one of the more disappointing parts. I think, Guy Malloy will be very disappointed in their defensive effort, disappointed in how they finished shooting the ball from the three-point line. But again, credit to Townsville, a young team to pick apart a very experienced team. Again, credit to Shannon Seabohm, and let's move on to the grand final.
Just before we do, I know you guys were chatting, so you may not have seen it, but the vision that we just played with the highlights showed you how many people were in the stadium. And I think 2 parts to this. One, it's so great that they're there for the WNBL. And 2, it's so great to see people in the stadium cheering on sport this year. It just gives you such good feelings, given a year of no one in stadiums is kind of what we've experienced. So,
I was going to say, how good is it going to be when Liz starts her antics again and that crowd gets into her in the grand final? And we got a snippet of it in the previous game, but I feel like it might go up to another level this game.
Yeah, I heard in a podcast this week someone was talking about the fact that Townsville actually are quite a trash talky crowd as well, so they will get into her. So not that we wish that on anyone, but it's just interesting.
For Chris and I, every town that we played in was a trash talking town. I think it's part of it though. I mean,
yeah, okay.
In a lot of ways, Chris used to play up to the crowd. I used to play up to the crowd, and it was something. I'll speak for myself. It was something that motivated me really, really early on, is getting the crowd offside. And it was my dad who told me, I think in my first year, after I played in Perth and I just got booed to all hell, that he said, the day that they stop booing you is the day you should retire, because you're not doing your job anymore. And so for people like myself, and I feel like people like Chris, we loved all that sort of stuff because it sort of got us going as well. So I understand why Liz does it. It's good fun.
You know what, though? It's as much as we all love playing in front of full home crowds, and a lot of people do depend on that positive or the positivity coming from the crowd. There was still, for me, I might have been a little bit different. There was nothing better than having an absolute full house on the road go deathly silent when you beat them down the stretch and you walk out and just sort of wait. But what I would say about that crowd, why wouldn't it be full? Because it is such a great product. There was commentary this week from a number of WNBL people. They were a little bit upset that the NBL had scheduled a preseason game. Who cares? If you're a preliminary final and you're worried about a preseason game, you're not doing your job well enough. I went to the pub with friends and watched the WNBL preliminary final and did not watch a second of the NBL preseason game. So for the WNBL, I think it doesn't matter who's playing at the same time. Be confident in your own product, support your own product, and have the confidence that people will watch your product, not because it's the only thing on, but because it's the best thing on. And for me, these WNBL finals have been the best thing on TV, not the only thing, and I think there's a big difference.
I'm actually so glad you touched on that. It's a great perspective that I'm glad you put forward, because there's been a lot of social media conversation about this. And I think the conversation came, I think it was Jenna O'Hea who said, we've got lots of really close friends in the NBL who want to watch us and they want to support us. And some of them might even want to come if they're up here, and they can't because they've got a game. So I think that was where she was going with that. But of course, that is a small number of people ultimately, and they'll just watch it up.
Sure, there are a lot more people than current players that are watching the game, though. So the NBL has to get ready for its own season. There are a lot of basketball fans out. I know that I've got a lot of people that have been watching this NBL season that hasn't watched it before, because like we said or in the pre-season show, they're all on television now. And it's not unusual to go out to a public or to a bar or to a hotel and you're asked to put the WNBL on now, and you've got the races, you've got the cricket, and you've got the WNBL all on screen side by side by side. And I think that's a really positive step.
Actually, interesting conversation as well that came out just quickly this week as well was just about is this a really good thing for the WNBL to be running at a different time to the NBL as well? Because normally there's so many clashes. So, are they going to rethink when they have their season next year is kind of potentially some conversation that I believe is going on now. Of course, I don't want to interrupt what goes on with the WNBA and the women that want to go over there. But just an interesting thing to say, if it's not running at the same time, is that a good thing for the sport? It means more people can be engaged in it from both a fan's perspective and also just watching it on TV.
It can be, especially if it's a short season, because I think it's only going to ever be, I think, a 3-month season. So if you can fit it into a period of time that doesn't sit alongside the NBL, it doesn't sit alongside the WNBA or cross over the WNBA, by all means, take a chunk of the calendar and make it your own. And over the holidays as well, when people are at home and families are at home,
smart.
Watch the WNBL.
Yeah, well, let's see what ends up happening with that. Let's get to the grand final. We're finally here. I can't believe it. Big congratulations to the Flyers and the Fire. It's so hard that it's the two names, Flyers and Fire. They're, of course, playing at 3:00 this Sunday, which is tomorrow, and can't wait for it. I think, exactly what you're saying, Chris. Get down to the pub, make sure you watch it, get a group of friends together. Who cares? The more important question is, who's going to take out the title?
Well, for me, it'd be interesting to see if Shannon, the first thing that he does is change his starting lineup and start Zatina versus Liz instead of going with Megan. I think Zatina. Hello, mate.
We've got a little mini.
Yeah, little Axel Worthington, future NBA player who will play for the Bucks.
Superstar in the making.
Yeah, I think if I was Shannon, the first thing I'd do is start Zatina versus Liz. I think it's a better matchup going forward. And for a team that probably hasn't started as well as what they have, maybe a little change up in the lineup is what's needed. Besides that, I think this is going to come down to shooting at the end of the day. It's a make or miss. And if we've talked about the Flyers, I think there was the top 4 3-point percentage shooters in the league are Flyers players. Maybe the Fire disrupt them enough. Maybe the crowd. Maybe it being a grand final. You never know what pops up. And a lot of great coaches that I've had is always expect the unexpected and then adapt really, really quickly. Does that mean Liz getting in foul trouble early? Does it mean the shot's not dropping? Whatever that may be could work in the Fire's favour, but they're definitely without a chance after what we saw in the last game where they probably outplayed them for 3 quarters. So I'm really excited for this game. I don't think it is as clean cut as what we thought it probably would be a week ago. That being said, I still expect that the Flyers will get this done, and I think at the end of the day, we'll see that why Liz is the best player in the world.
Let's flick this around a little bit, and we've given Townsville all of the credit they deserve, but we need to also give the Flyers a lot of credit, because it's a hard thing sometimes to be a team that coming into a season, everybody expects to win the championship, and anything less than winning a championship is considered a failure. And that's a really tricky thing, because you've still got 10 athletes doing their best to win this thing, and it means a lot. So They didn't look great at times early on in the season, but Cheryl Chambers has got them playing better basketball down the back end of this season than they did at the start. Let's talk a little bit about their depth as well. Steph Blitzarves against Townsville in the semi-final I thought was outstanding. Defensively, she was great. She stretched the floor. She knocked down 3 threes and was really, really solid. Rachel Jarry was solid, and I think the Fire let her get away and got too many uncontested. She's not someone who's going to make contested shots, but she's been around the game so long, she plays very good positional basketball and finds the right spots on the floor to be in. Sarah Blitzards is still one of the Flyers' high-minute players. Outside of, Leilani Mitchell played 37 against the Flyers, so it shows how important she is and why it was valuable to get her rest earlier on. But Sarah Blitzards is their high-minute player for the year and fills in gaps. Now, if you're the Flyers, I think you want to attack Sarah Blitzards defensively as often as you can. If she's on the floor for 37 minutes, I'd be going at her every single time possible. You don't want to go away from what you're doing, but if you find that you've got a matchup or an isolation, go, because I just tend to think that if Sarah's minutes were limited and down in the 20s, the Flyers' rotations gets very, very different as well, and they become smaller. So, especially with Jenna out. But I agree with Worth, though. It's not quite as clear cut, and I don't think it would be as big a probably blowout as maybe what we would have thought. But I expect the gambling companies to put the line up at about 11 or 12, and I think that the Flyers will still cover that.
It's you talk about Steph and you talk about Rachel Giari, and that goes back to my previous comment about how finals are different and every possession counts. The amount of extra possessions that both those girls got in that Townsville game was evident, and that's something that Shannon would need to address with his team is when the bench players come on, that's really your opportunity to put the foot down and get those stops. Now, if I'm Townsville, I'm attacking Liz early in the game, and that's why I'm going with Zatina in the starting lineup and throw the ball down to her in the post and make the umpires make a decision really early on in the game. The crowd's going to be on their side, so it will just heighten everything just a little bit more. As far as the Flyers, then you have to work through Liz and then continue Liz's season of get the ball inside early and then kick it back out to your shooters. And as the game wears on, keep throwing it back inside because she'll get the better of those matchups overall. It makes for a lot of intriguing matchups. I agree with Chris's attacking Sarah if I'm the Fire as well. But like I said, I think this comes down to shooting at the end of the day.
I'll tweak it just a fraction. I think I don't mind starting Zatina, and if you don't, I think she comes into the game early. But we saw the success she had against Liz. It wasn't by rolling it into the block and being a physical game. It was catching it on the elbow at the top and getting into her dribble handoff game. And a couple of times she held onto it, faked that dribble handoff, took one more dribble and got on the rim and made Liz move her feet. So I think by her being mobile and then strong is where you can really attack Liz. And the other player for the Flyers who I forgot to mention because, of course, she's now starting, who's been critical on this, is Amy Clydesdale and has been very, very underrated. All season long, she's been their best, most disruptive player defensively. Her being in the starting lineup is a really positive thing against the Flyers because they will come up the floor for the duration of this game. So to have that secondary ball carrier in the Flyers starting lineup to ease some of the pressure from Leilani in the backcourt will help. She's knocked down the open three. She's made great choices. And again, like I said, she's been really, really solid defensively, and she will undoubtedly go to either Nicholson or Hill, of course, and she'll have a really important job to do for the Flyers.
Does the WNBL do award like MVP for Grand Final Series? Do they do that?
Yes.
They do. And look, you can't see it being anyone but Liz, can you? I just think that's what it's going to
give it to Steph Talbot.
No comment.
But it's going to be such a fun game. It's going to be exciting, and the great thing is that one of the great qualities of a highly anticipated grand final is contradictory styles of basketball. The Flyers are big and strong and experienced. The Fire are a lot smaller. They're a lot younger. They're a lot more perimeter. They're just two very different styles of basketball. And back in my day when it was a Magic against the Tigers, we always thought it was the defensive versus the offensive. Well, it's a little bit of that here, but it's going to be intriguing. A David and Goliath battle that I think there'll be a lot of basketball people rooting for the Fire, but there is still going to be all the Melbourne basketball fans. I think at the end of the day will want the Flyers to win, however stacked they may appear. And I'll tell you what, whoever wins this thing, it is going to be well-deserved. And I say that as much for the Flyers as the Fire, because winning championships is a really hard thing to do, no matter who you are.
Who are we picking if everyone is going to pick their winner? Who are you picking, Chris?
Flyers. I'll go Flyers by 15 in the end.
Flyers by 15, where though?
I'll go Flyers by 3.
That
I'll
close.
say Townsville
Okay.
by 1. Let's make
good.
it fun.
All right.
Give it a mix. Brad will keep this audio for next week and someone will wobble their head for sure. Just a reminder, everyone, again, it is at 3 o'clock on Sunday, the 20th of December. It's going to be across all of our platforms, or all of their platforms, I should say. So ABC iView, Foxtel and KO. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to get down to a pub and get them to put it on and get the whole pub around me excited too. I love that we can have that power. You're right, Chris. Just get in there and say, hey, put this on because it's on Foxtel. So you can obviously do that. I can't wait. Are you guys watching it anywhere special? Any plan?
No, we'll be watching. We've got a bit of a basketball gathering, so we'll have it on and we'll be following closely, of course.
Awesome. And Wertho, no doubt you'll watch it with your boys as well too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, guys, it has been amazing. We'll obviously be back again to talk after the grand final at some point and to, of course, lead us into the NBL season, which, can you believe, is only 3 weeks away. Smack bang today, 3 weeks. It's on.
And the NBA season, which is...
And the NBA starts tomorrow,
even closer.
doesn't it? Yeah. Unbelievable. It's amazing. It feels like from a year of no sport to like a lot of basketball in a very short space of time. So it's a pleasure having seen you guys on a Saturday, seeing what you look like in the mornings as well on Zoom, where we do this as a video podcast as well. You can catch it on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, or you can listen to us on Apple and Spotify as well. We will pop those links up on our social media. Wertho, Chris, it was a pleasure. Have a beautiful Saturday and go the Fire, I guess. That's what I'm going to say.
We look forward to talking about it in a couple of days. Good luck to both teams.